Okay. I don't know where I'm going with this, once again. And that is kind of unnerving. I feel like as long as I have something planned, I'm fine. In terms of stress and stuff, or like staying on track. And here, I don't have anything. I don't have a script, I don't have an outline. I'm not prepared. But like I said multiple times already, I'm not here to do anything right. I'm not here to put out my best ideas. I'm just here to try. That's kind of the idea that I'm trying to push forward within myself, because how are you ever going to become good in anything if you're not trying to try, you know? For a really long time, I've been scared to like raise my hand in classes because it's scary, you know, expressing your ideas and facing the possibility of like being wrong or like being laughed at or whatever. Like, I don't know, like it is definitely scary, but it's also something that I don't like about myself. Like, sometimes I would sit in English class and like I would want to read out loud, right? But other people were just more confident in raising their hands, and I was just like, you know, I mean, you seem more confident, so I'm just not gonna bother because I'm scared, you know? Like, and both with this and in life in general, I'm trying to push the idea of just doing things in order to try, you know? Like, I'm gonna go and make myself coffee with the possibility of it being really bad, but maybe if I make coffee really badly today, I'll make it better tomorrow. And like, that's such a bad metaphor, but that's the kind of idea that I'm going with, like in everything. I'm just kind of like, you know what? I have a story to write. I might be really bad at it, but like, is that a reason for me not to try? Like, I don't think that should be the reason for me not to try, because if I start limiting myself, I'm gonna limit myself so much that I'm not gonna live a life. And furthermore, I think that there's so many things that are gonna limit you in terms of like, I don't know, like external things that are gonna limit you. Like someone's gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, but like we have someone else for this job. That's something you can't control, but that's a limit, you know? And the only way you can kind of like let yourself live is if you decide, you know what, I don't have any limits for myself, because that's as limitless as the world is gonna get. Because obviously there are always going to be external factors that are gonna kind of like narrow down your possibilities, I guess. But the only way we can ever get closer to a limitless life and world is if we're limitless towards ourselves. Like, that's the first step towards having no limits. So, I mean, you know, and with that, maybe one day we'll have no limits in terms of external factors. We'll see. I don't know, like that's definitely, we can't be considering the limits of our external factors if we haven't stopped limiting ourselves, if that makes sense. Again, I'm going on a roll right now. I don't know where this is going, but I wanted to read poetry. And just to start this off, I have never read poetry. Like, I used to despise poetry. Whenever we'd have to read it in class, I would honestly make myself sick and not go to school because I didn't see the point in like reading words that didn't make sense, you know, like all these poems into nowhere, kind of expressing something but kind of not. And like the poems that would rhyme and like the poems that were kind of like somehow relevant to my life were fine, like that would kind of like pass. But poems of someone riding in a bus without any like meaning to me, I was kind of like, why are we reading this? And so with that hatred, moderate hatred for poetry, somehow I ended up buying this book called How to Be Human by Jennifer Wilson. And this book kind of made me reconsider all my opinions on poetry, because it's different. It's not like most poetry you read at school. In fact, it's not like that at all. More often it's shorter and it's more relevant to, I guess, a teenager's or a young adult's perspective. And it's just a little more about our lives rather than the lives of, you know, the other people that we read about. In school, they kind of give you the classics, and that's not always something that you can relate to. I don't know what we're gonna read. We're just gonna find something and read it. Right, so everything I ever lost has been returned to me, but I can't help feeling that I'm missing something very important. What I think about this is that when you go through hard times, at some point it ends, right? At some point you feel like a conflict has resolved, or your problem has kind of shifted or disappeared, or, you know, and at that point where your worst moments are in your past, if you look around and kind of see yourself in this better world after a storm, there's always something missing. And it's not necessarily that you lost something. Like sometimes everything comes back, like what is mentioned. But what I think is that whenever we experience anything in life, and especially something bad or even moderately traumatic, we change. And through that change, we kind of end up leaving a piece of ourselves in that past reality, in that conflict even, or before the conflict, if you wish. And that's the piece of us that we feel right after the conflict is over. We feel it missing. It's definitely not a good feeling. But at the same time, I feel like this poem depicts the concept of going through something or, changing really well. I think it's part of being human, and I don't think we should try to avoid that, because with that change, we become better people, or we just change, hopefully for the better. But yeah, the concept of missing something important is so powerful, I believe. A way to pass the time has always been to be a collector of secrets, to hold their knowledge between your fingers, so when they try to cut you down with their knives, you can throw it all back in their face. Right, so again, a while back I wrote under it, I don't believe in revenge. There's no reason to regenerate shit. It isn't a good coping mechanism either. And if anything, you should never mix a ruined friendship with the relationship you had when it was real. Treasure real shit, even if things change. Right, so excuse the profanity. But I wrote this at a place where I felt like I was losing a friendship. And I was kind of mad at this poem because it mixes that barrier between the real and the ruined. And in the mental state that I was in when I commented on that poem, the most sacred thing that I had in my life in terms of that friendship was that even if it's gone or ruined or broken, the friendship as it is in the past is real. And I don't think you should protect yourself by focusing on a possible betrayal while things are real, because even if you do have something to throw back at the person at the end, it's not going to make the hurting stop. It's our instinct to punch back, but it's not one that's going to save us from our feelings. It's not one that's going to make it go away. So while I understand where that instinct comes from, and while I understand that when you get hurt a lot, you just want to have someone else feel your pain, when you do have the option to keep the two things separate, the real and the ruined, you should try to do that as much as possible. Right, this one is kind of scary to me. How many people do you think you've already seen for the last time? A thought to ponder. There's a reason that this particular poem or quote is so scary to me. Along with the fact that in life in general, you're gonna have people you're gonna lose, or you're gonna have people drift away from you, you're gonna drift away from people. Along with that, the mundane reality of everyday life in everyone's case, I have always been scared of losing really good friendships. And as you grow up, you change, and people around you change, and there's gonna be conflicts and fights and arguments, and I think it's scary because you could be best friends with someone and then have something change all of that in a second. And the way it is in middle school and high school is that once you're mad at someone, you don't really talk to them. You cut them out of your life as much as you can, and most likely you're never going to see them again after some point. And what's scary is that you can be best friends with someone and it can all go away. They can completely disappear from your life without you even realizing it. And when a friendship, or any sort of relationship for that matter, gets ruined, it slips away really fast that you're almost automatically left with the memories. You never have enough time to think about it, like, oh, I'm losing this person in most cases. And when you think about all the best friends that drifted away from you passively and without you being able to bring them back. Things like these really do seem scary. But also death. Death is definitely one of them as well. And the fact that you could see someone on the street pass by them and that they would also never come back to your life. Like, that's also scary. Although, I'm not really sure why, because they're just a stranger. I don't know. There's so many things that I don't know. It's insane, but that's why, like, I like life, if that makes sense. Cliche and cringy, but that's just me. Whatever. I am low in patience, low in empathy, low in love. I am not afraid of losing you anymore. And so again, a while back I wrote, this to me is freedom. Freedom that I don't yet possess. I care, sometimes too much. Sometimes when no one cares. It's my vice and virtue, but it is also why I must disconnect. I'm the constant. That's all to rely on. Don't ever forget that. And don't ever give others shit if it means losing a part of yourself. Sometimes empathy is a weakness. Once again, I find it important to point out that I don't know how much I agree with that anymore. I think that definitely putting others before you can become tiring, and at times that makes you put yourself lower, and losing respect for yourself is never good. So there is a bit of truth in that. But I also think that, at least for me, I think it's, if someone else wrote that, I would understand, because I think that it's definitely a very good point. You know, yes, you should just keep in mind that you're the one that's going to remain, and that should have some sort of importance. No, you should not be selfish because of it. You shouldn't put yourself above others because of that. But you should keep in mind that while nothing is stable in life, there is stability in the fact that you are always going to have you around, if that makes sense. But I think that, at least for me, and for the person that I am, and for the values that I have found for myself, or the life that I want to live, or the mission that I feel like I have, I guess. Oh well, that's a very big statement, but whatever. I feel like for the person that I am, this isn't what I should be saying. I want to focus on the people in my life because that's what makes me happy. And therefore, even when things are tough, this is a bit too extreme. And while discouragement is obviously a norm, this extent of it isn't particularly what I feel like should be within myself. But another thing that I came across this year, and I guess it's an obvious thing for most people, but for me it wasn't, is that you can't really be a good person to others unless you're a good person to yourself. I feel like if you put yourself down at some point, you're kind of going to lose yourself and step out of your values and morals. So it's a broad subject that I might talk more about later. I think that in order to be good to others, you should be good to yourself. Yeah. My battery is dying, so I apologize if this was a bit all over the place. But once again, like, I'm just doing this for me, I guess. And I don't mean that to be in a selfish way. I just mean that I don't really have anyone to make this for. So that's why I'm doing this for myself. There's actually another book, and that is Big Magic. Big Magic basically tells you that while you should be doing art for the sake of art and for yourself, you should also release it. Because who are you to keep your art away from the universe? Even if it's really bad art, or even if it's really pointless and unasked for, just release it. And I guess she's right. I don't know. I hope you have a great day and that you do the things you enjoy doing. And that you just, I don't know, think more about the choices you make in life. Or that I do that, really. But yeah, peace. Haha. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, bro. Don't apologize. Even if it sucks. Why would you apologize to yourself? Well, at the end of the day, I'm just Sandy and no one really cares. So I can mess up all I want. But that should also be a motivation to do it well. To my best abilities, I guess, for now. Let's grow from where we are, but for that we need to try. I'm sorry if this is really cheesy, faux deep, and cliche. Or obvious. I don't know.